If someone gave your brother $60,000 to buy his dream home, looked you in the eye, and told you that you would be fine without any help, what would you do? Would you argue? Would you beg? Or would you disappear, build an entirely different life in silence, and wait until the day they needed you instead? My name is Mason Carter, and this is exactly what happened to me. I was 32 years old the night my family unknowingly changed the course of my life forever. It happened during an ordinary Sunday dinner. My father reached into his jacket, pulled out a plain white envelope, and slowly slid it across the table to my older brother, Ethan. Inside was a check for $60,000 to help him buy his dream house. Everyone smiled. My parents hugged him with tears in their eyes, celebrating his new chapter. Watching all of it unfold, I smiled too. Then I asked the simplest question I could think of. Since I have been saving for a house too, will there ever be any help for me? My mother smiled gently, folded her napkin, and said something I will never forget. You will be fine renting. You have always been fine. She meant it as a compliment. It felt like a life sentence. Growing up, my family always rescued Ethan whenever life became difficult. If he lost a job, my parents covered his expenses. If he made poor financial decisions, they paid off his debts. Whenever he stumbled, someone rushed in to catch him. I never received that kind of help because I never gave anyone a reason to worry. I worked for everything I owned. I became a pediatric ICU nurse, worked endless overnight shifts, drove an old Honda, rented a tiny apartment, skipped vacations, and quietly saved almost $50,000 without telling anyone. That Sunday dinner did not make me angry. It made me certain. I promised myself that I would never again wait for someone else's approval, money, or permission to build the life I wanted. The very next morning, I met with my credit union to find out exactly what I could afford. The loan amount was smaller than I had hoped, but instead of treating it like a limitation, I treated it like a starting point. I began studying real estate every chance I had. Between hospital shifts, I read books, watched videos, attended local investment meetings, and learned from experienced landlords. That was where I met Walter, an older investor who rarely complimented anyone. When I told him I wanted to buy a duplex, he simply looked at me and said that everyone loves collecting rent until the first toilet breaks at 2 a.m. Instead of discouraging me, his words challenged me. I kept showing up every month. Eventually, I found a neglected duplex that most buyers ignored. I negotiated a lower price after discovering outdated wiring and bought it using an FHA loan. 1. Side already had a reliable tenant while I moved into the older unit myself. After exhausting 12-hour nursing shifts, I painted walls, repaired plumbing, learned basic carpentry, and stretched every dollar as far as possible. Slowly, everything began to change. The rental income covered most of my mortgage, leaving me with housing costs lower than ever. Every extra dollar went back into savings. Meanwhile, my family never noticed. Every Sunday dinner revolved around Ethan's beautiful home, his newest plans, and whatever challenge he happened to be facing. Once I casually mentioned that I had become interested in rental properties. Everyone laughed politely. Apparently, real estate investing was impossible for someone living on a nurse's salary. That was the last time I brought it up. Over the following 18 months, I bought another fixer-upper, renovated it myself, refinanced it after increasing its value, and used that equity to purchase another property. Walter slowly became my mentor because he realized I was not chasing shortcuts. I was willing to do the hard work. Eventually, he trusted me enough to seller finance the final duplex from his own portfolio. One evening, I stood inside my kitchen looking at 4 brass hooks mounted beside the back door. Each hook held a property key. 4 keys. 6 rental units. Every mortgage paying itself, and nobody in my family knew any of it. Everything stayed quiet until a local business newspaper published a story about my journey. By sunrise, my phone would not stop ringing. Coworkers congratulated me, friends reached out. Then my aunt shared the article inside our family group chat asking if the successful investor in the newspaper was really me. Within minutes, everyone knew. A few days later, my mother called me over to the family house. I expected congratulations. Instead, she accused me of hiding everything from them. She insisted I had lied to the family. I calmly reminded her that nobody had ever asked what I was building. They simply assumed I would always be fine. Trying to Break the tension, Ethan joked that I had finally managed to buy myself a house. I looked at him and quietly asked one question. Which one? The room became completely silent. That silence lasted until the real truth finally surfaced. Ethan had secretly lost his job months earlier. The house my parents helped him buy was buried under debt. A failed house flipping project had made everything worse. He was falling behind on his mortgage. A week later, everyone gathered for another Sunday dinner. This time, my father slid a folder across the table toward me. Inside were refinancing documents. All they needed was my signature. My income and credit would save Ethan's house. For a moment, I stared at the papers. I could afford the risk. More importantly, I knew saying yes would probably earn the acceptance I had wanted my entire life. Then I remembered something Walter had once told me. Help that never asks someone to grow is not really help. I quietly closed the folder. No. Instead of rescuing Ethan, I offered him something much more valuable. I would help him sell the house before foreclosure. I would negotiate with the bank. I would build him a realistic budget. And when one of my rental homes became available, he could apply exactly like every other tenant. No special treatment, no bailout, just an honest opportunity to rebuild his life. My mother was furious. She believed I was choosing business over family. I simply told her that I had spent my entire life making sure I would always be fine because someone at that table had to. Then I walked away. A few days later, Ethan came to visit me alone. For the first time in years, he stopped pretending. He admitted he had been living beyond his means while depending on our parents whenever things fell apart. Together, we sold his house, eliminated his debt, and started over. Months later, he rented one of my homes after completing the same application every tenant completed. He paid every rent payment early, worked consistently, built savings, and slowly became the responsible man our parents had tried to create through endless rescue. My father eventually started helping me repair my rentals every weekend. We rarely talked about the past. We did not need to. Sometimes actions become the apology words never can. My mother never truly admitted she had been wrong. Over time, I realized she had simply repeated the lessons she inherited from her own parents. She believed love meant saving the child who struggled most while assuming the responsible child would always survive alone. Today, those same 4 property keys still hang beside my kitchen door. Nobody handed me success inside a white envelope. Nobody rescued me. I earned every key through discipline, sacrifice, sleepless nights, and thousands of quiet decisions no one applauded. Looking back now, I finally understand something that took me years to learn. Being the child who was always fine was never my weakness. It became my greatest advantage. Because when no one comes to save you, you eventually learn how to save yourself. And once you build a life with your own hands, no one can ever take it away.